What is up, everybody? I am back here for another video today. I'm live from Hawaii on vacation, but with the Omaha College World Series starting on Friday, how can I not talk about this as we lead up to this massive tournament? Now, the regionals in this tournament were unbelievable. We saw some four seeds go through. We saw UCLA, Georgia Tech both get eliminated. And overall, it was just an amazing weekend. I will say, though, the super regionals weren't nearly as fun. It seemed like a lot of, every single game pretty much was, a two-game series, a couple three games, but it wasn't anything that was, spectacular, super competitive. And yeah, a lot pretty underwhelming. But regardless, we get eight teams in Omaha. We got five teams from the SEC. We got three teams from outside, and eight really good baseball teams overall. Now, of course, there's two brackets. There is West Virginia, Troy, North Carolina, and Ole Miss on one side, as well as Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas, and Georgia on the other side. 16 incredible teams, and I can't wait to talk about how some of these teams are going to do this week. Now I'm going to go through for game by game predictions, and I'm going to start off with the first round game for every team. West Virginia versus Troy. I'm going to give the nod to West Virginia. I think, Troy may be a better story, but West Virginia is obviously an amazing story as well, being their first time in Omaha. And I think West Virginia's just proven more. While Troy did get out of a really tough regional, the Super Regional wasn't very tough, and I think the main reason they got out of it obviously was because of the crowd. And the reality is they did play Little Rock. They did get to play at home. West Virginia absolutely destroyed Cal Poly. The fans there were insane. I do think West Virginia is just a more powerful team. They proved themselves more. They had a better record despite playing in a much tougher conference. And so I'm going to give the nod to West Virginia there. In the second game, North Carolina versus Ole Miss. I'm going to go with North Carolina. Same thing. I think they're just more proven. Ole Miss is a fantastic team. Obviously, beat Auburn on the road, which is a big deal. But I do think overall North Carolina has just proven more this season. And yeah, and even though they had their tough times against USC, I still do think they get out of their first game against Ole Miss. Then between Oklahoma and Alabama, I'm actually going to give the nod to Oklahoma. Alabama, of course, is an amazing team, but Oklahoma has just been so hot recently, and they just give great vibes of a Cinderella story just by being so poor in the SEC this year, but really turning things up when it matters most. And I do think Oklahoma, again, probably not the better team, but they've just been so hot recently. Obviously did so well in the regional, in the super regional. And I do think they're going to get the nod over Alabama, even though I do think Alabama is a better team. And then the final game, Georgia versus Texas. I'm going to go with Georgia. I think two of the best teams in the tournament potentially, but I think Georgia's just a little bit better. The pitching's a little bit better. The hitting's pitching, I guess, is like 50-50, but the hitting's just a little bit better. They have a little bit more star power. And even though their super regional didn't make me super confident, especially on the pitching side, I think I just trust them a little bit more than Texas. Now, in the next round, it's between North Carolina and West Virginia. And I'm going to give the nod to North Carolina to make it to their side of the brackets championship game. I think that North Carolina, like I said, is more proven. And West Virginia, of course, they have an amazing Cinderella story. But I think the fact that they played Cal Poly twice, the fact they haven't played super tough opponents so far throughout the playoffs, and even at points in the Big 12 season as well, I do think North Carolina is just going to get the best of them. And I do think it's going to be a big wake up call for West Virginia to get things going after that. And then for the second game between Ole Miss and Troy. Gonna give the nod to Troy, actually. I think that obviously they're the Cinderella coming in, but I think that Troy has, I think they want it a lot. And Ole Miss, obviously a great team as well. But Troy, I think, I don't think they're gonna go down to, 0-2, just because I think they're good enough to get a win. They are a really, really talented squad, and they have played some really tough teams this year. So therefore, I do think Troy's actually gonna not go out 2 days in. Then on the bottom side of the bracket, it's going to be Oklahoma versus Georgia. And of course, I'm going to give it to Georgia. I think this Oklahoma Cinderella story stops a little bit short. I think Georgia is just so much more powerful. And I think that's going to be a very, very easy game for them. And Texas versus Alabama, two teams that probably shouldn't be in this game, but are just because of logistical reasons. And I do think Texas is a little bit of a better team. They're deeper. They're a lot deeper. And they've proven it a lot this season, whereas Alabama, well, they've done good. I mean, they did only beat St. John's. They didn't have that tough of a regional. They haven't faced the adversity that Texas has faced this year. And therefore, I'm going to give the nod to Texas. Now, for the regional, the game that decides who makes the regional finals, and will also knock out two teams. I'm super lucky. These are going to be the two games that I go to personally when I go to Omaha in a few weeks. First up is going to be West Virginia versus Troy. I think this is pretty easy. I think West Virginia is a much better team. And I think that wake up call is going to help them, whereas Troy is kind of just edging their way to this position. But I do think West Virginia is a much better team, and I think they'll get it done. Now, the second one I think is pretty interesting between Oklahoma and Texas. Obviously, two super bitter rivals. Texas beat them all three times this year. And I think they do have the edge. I think they're the better team in general. I will say, though, Oklahoma, when things matter, Oklahoma always becomes great. And so I do think that'll give them a chance. But unfortunately, I'm going to go with Texas. Like I said, I think they're the better team. I think they're deeper. I think they've had a better, they haven't had a better postseason, but a better, course of the season. And I can't pick Oklahoma after they've lost to Texas three times this year. Now, regional final, North Carolina versus West Virginia. West Virginia needs 2 wins. North Carolina just needs one. Well, guess what? I'm giving it to West Virginia. This is definitely a tough pick, and definitely pretty ballsy, but I do think West Virginia has just gathered together more. I think their fan base has grown more. I think they've all become together more than North Carolina in this stretch so far. And I do think they're just going to rally behind a couple wins. And I do think West Virginia, pretty shockingly, makes the national championship this year, which is obviously going to be an unbelievable story. And on the other side, you have Georgia and Texas. I think this one goes pretty quickly. I think Georgia, after beating them early, they're going to do it again. I think Georgia, like I said, better team, proven more in the SEC this year. Texas is a good team, definitely. They could take a game and force kind of one final game before the finals, but I do think Georgia ultimately gets out of it without forcing that third game. The national championship, the one we've all been waiting for, Georgia, West Virginia. Unfortunately, I can't give it to my Mountaineers. I'm going to have to go with Georgia. I think the Bulldogs are just a much more talented team. They've proven it more this season. They're much more, they know what it's like to play in Omaha a little bit more. I think this West Virginia Cinderella story is going to be unbelievable. But I do think Georgia ultimately gets out of it. And unfortunately, I don't think it's very close. I think they're just going to beat them, boom, boom, and then things are done. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait for the College World Series to start this Friday. It's going to be unbelievable. Make sure to stay tuned on my channel if you want to see more coverage in the future for college baseball or just college sports in general.